Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Imagine for a second that you are driving down the highway.
Right. Just cruising along.
Yeah, you've got great momentum, the road is clear, and you're just making great time. But imagine that every single time you want to change lanes or adjust the radio or turn on your windshield wipers, you have to physically shift your car into neutral.
Oh, wow. That
Uh,
sounds terrible.
Right. You do the action, and then you have to jam it back into gear. That constant, jarring mechanical break in your momentum would totally ruin your fuel efficiency.
Not to mention, it would absolutely wreck the joy of driving.
Exactly. And that is the fundamental premise we are exploring today. Because every single time you take your hands off the keyboard to reach for your mouse, you're basically shifting your brain into neutral.
That is a perfect way to put it, yeah.
So today we are taking a specialized deep dive into a comprehensive guide by Felix Römer directly from smartkeys.org. And we're looking at this, not just as a collection of cool tech tips, but as a critical strategic advantage for the modern professional.
It is a massive strategic advantage, honestly. And our mission for this deep dive is to really explore the profound impact of keeping your hands on the keys and keeping your eyes anchored to the screen.
Because it's about minimizing friction. Right.
Precisely. We're going to look closely at how eliminating that microscopic physical friction, reaching for the mouse, reduces cognitive context switching.
Which is huge for focus.
Huge. I mean, if you adopt the framework laid out in these sources, we're talking about reclaiming literal hours of lost productivity every single week.
That's incredible. But it requires fundamentally transforming the underlying mechanics of how you interact with your digital workspace, doesn't it?
It does. It's a complete paradigm shift for most people.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when I reviewed Felix Römer's framework, my first reaction was noticing my own physical habits.
Yeah, we all have those built-in habits.
Oh, definitely. Like my hand leaves the keyboard to grab the mouse dozens, maybe hundreds of times an hour. Can you explain the actual cognitive and physical mechanisms driving this philosophy of friction?
Absolutely.
Like, why is that tiny hand movement so detrimental to our work?
Well, to understand the friction, we have to look at a concept in human-computer interaction called Fitts' law.
Okay, Fitts' law. What is that exactly?
It's a predictive model. It states that the time required to rapidly move to a target area is a function of the ratio between the distance to the target and the width of the target.
So distance and size, basically.
Exactly. When you use a mouse, your target, like a little button on the screen, is very small. And the physical distance your hand has to travel from the keyboard to the mouse is, relatively speaking, massive.
Right. And then the visual distance the cursor travels across the monitor adds to that.
Exactly. That requires fine motor control and visual tracking. Your brain literally has to halt its current creative or analytical process.
Just to calculate the spatial geometry of the screen.
Yeah. It calculates the space, moves the cursor, clicks, and then has to recalibrate to the keyboard. But when you use a keyboard shortcut, the physical travel distance is essentially zero.
Because your hands are already there.
Right. The target size is irrelevant because your fingers are already resting on the keys.
Okay, I understand the physics of it, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
I mean, I have eyes. I have a mouse perfectly calibrated to my screen sensitivity.
Sure.
Isn't it ultimately faster and, less mentally taxing to just look at a visual button and click it, rather than trying to memorize what feels like an arcane dictionary of hidden codes?
That is by far the most common hurdle people face when attempting to adopt keyboard-centric workflows.
It really feels like you're being asked to memorize the command line of a mainframe.
It does, but the rebuttal embedded in our source material completely reframes this. You actually don't need to guess, and you definitely don't need to memorize a dictionary.
Really? Then how do you find them?
Well, software developers have actively engineered discovery tools right into the operating systems. They built them to help you map that muscle memory seamlessly.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you have an example?
Yeah. For example, if you're working on a Chromebook, pressing the search key, which functions much like the command key on a Mac or the Windows key on a PC, along with the letter S, instantly generates an overlay on your screen.
Just an overlay pops up.
Exactly. And that overlay catalogs every single system command organized by category.
Wait, really? So the operating system itself is offering up a built-in tutor?
Yes. You don't have to Google a cheat sheet because the cheat sheet is hard-coded into the device itself.
That is so smart. Does that apply to other apps too?
It extends far beyond the base operating system. Take the Slack desktop application, for instance.
Oh, Slack is notorious for being mouse-heavy if you don't know any better.
Exactly. But if you press Control and the / key on Windows or Linux, or Command and / on a Mac, the app immediately pulls up a built-in command viewer with its own dedicated search box.
Wow, right there inside Slack.
Yep. What's fascinating here is the intent behind the design. Developers spend thousands of hours building these cheat sheets into software because they actively want power users to bypass the graphical interface.
Oh, I see. So the mouse is basically just training wheels.
That's a great analogy. The mouse is designed for beginners to discover the software. The keyboard is designed for professionals to master it.
That distinction between discovery and mastery completely shifts how I view the interface.
It changes everything, yeah.
So rather than seeing shortcuts as a hack, we should really view them as the native language of the machine.
Perfectly said.
Okay, so now that we understand how to find the vocabulary, let's look at the grammar. The guide heavily emphasizes the foundational building blocks. Specifically, it talks about the big three modifiers: Control, Shift, and Alt.
Yes, those three keys form the architectural foundation of almost all software navigation.
How so?
Well, from a hardware perspective, hitting a letter key simply sends a standard hexadecimal code to the computer's processor.
Right, it just types the letter.
Exactly. But when you hold down a modifier key, like Control or Alt, you are structurally altering the binary signal that gets sent.
Oh, so you're changing the instruction entirely.
Yes, you're telling the operating system, do not print this character. Instead, intercept this signal and execute a higher-level function.
That makes total sense.
And once you internalize how these modifiers interact with the alphanumeric keys, you unlock a universal control scheme that applies to virtually every piece of software on the market.
And nowhere is the power of that universal control scheme more obvious than in a web browser.
Oh, absolutely. Browsers are the perfect testing ground.
Yeah, I was reviewing the section on browser management, and the fluidity you can achieve is just incredible. You've got the standard operations, Control plus T to open a new tab.
Right, and Control plus W to close it.
Exactly, and jumping between them with Control plus Tab. But the feature that stood out to me as an absolute game changer is Control, Shift, and T.
Ah, yes. The session restoration command. It is incredibly powerful.
I look at it as a digital get-out-of-jail-free card.
That's exactly what it is.
I mean, everyone has experienced that sinking feeling. You're deep into a research project, you have like 12 different references open, and your finger twitches on the mouse.
And boom, it's gone.
Yes. You accidentally click the tiny X on the main window and everything vanishes. But pressing Control, Shift, and T instantly resurrects the entire window with every tab exactly where it was.
It's like a time machine.
It really is. What is actually happening under the hood there? How does the browser remember all of that instantly?
It's tied to how modern browsers cache session states. When you close a tab or a window, the browser doesn't just immediately purge that data from your RAM.
Oh, it holds on to it.
Yeah, it holds the document object model, the DOM state, the session ID, and the back-forward history in a temporary cache specifically designed for this command.
So it's not just reloading the URL from scratch?
No, it is restoring your exact digital environment.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of professional workflow, the value isn't just saving the 2 minutes it would take to dig through your browser history.
What's the real value then?
The real value is psychological safety.
Psychological safety in a web browser. Okay, break that down for me.
Well, when you know you have a safety net that operates at the speed of thought, your behavior actually changes. You stop operating with hesitation.
Because a misclick isn't a disaster anymore.
Exactly. A misclick with a mouse can derail your workflow and induce a spike of cortisol as you scramble to recover your work. With the session restore command, a catastrophic misclick costs you exactly half a second of recovery time.
So you don't lose your train of thought.
Right. You are free to move rapidly, open and close resources aggressively, and maintain your flow state because the system is just deeply forgiving.
You remove the fear of breaking things, which naturally accelerates your pace. That is a brilliant way to frame it.
It really frees you up.
Now, if the browser is where we gather our materials, the document is where we actually forge the work. And here's where it gets really interesting for me.
The editing phase.
Yeah, because moving from navigation to actual text manipulation without a mouse is where the time savings compound massively.
The standard physical approach to editing text is wildly inefficient.
It is. Think about the physical mechanics of highlighting a sentence with a mouse.
The human motor system is simply not optimized to drag a plastic peripheral across a desk with pixel-perfect precision.
No, you constantly overshoot. You grab the empty space at the end of a line, or you accidentally highlight a formatting break.
and then you have to click away and try again.
It is infuriating. I always end up accidentally dragging and dropping a paragraph into the middle of another sentence.
We've all been there.
But the keyboard shortcuts rely on the software's internal logic, right? Like holding shift and using the left or right arrow keys selects text character by character.
Yes.
But if you add the control key, so control shift, left or right arrow, the cursor snaps to whole words.
Exactly, because the operating system is actively assisting you. It
Uh-huh.
uses regular expressions and word boundary detection to understand where a string of text begins and ends.
So it does the precise work for you.
Yep. You aren't relying on your hand-eye coordination to find the space between words.
Yeah.
You are instructing the system's logic to jump to the next definitive boundary. It basically becomes mathematically impossible to overshoot your selection.
That is so cool. Which brings us to arguably the most vital command discussed in the source material. Control, Shift, V.
Oh, absolutely. The plain text paste.
If you take only one tactical practice away from this entire deep dive, this needs to be it. When you highlight text from a messy PDF or a heavily stylized web page and use the standard copy-paste, you drag all that visual baggage with you.
All the weird fonts, the highlighted background colors, the massive header sizes.
Exactly. But Control, Shift, V strips all that away.
Right. To understand why this works, you have to understand the architecture of the computer's clipboard.
Okay, how does that work?
When you highlight a stylized paragraph and press copy, the system doesn't just store the words. It stores a complex data structure.
Yeah.
It saves the raw plain text, but it also saves the HTML tags, the CSS styling metadata, and the font metrics.
And a standard paste just dumps all of that into your document.
Exactly. A standard paste command forces the system to render the most complex version of that data. But by adding the shift modifier, you are explicitly commanding the operating system to dump all the metadata.
So it only delivers the raw text.
Yes, only the raw ASCII or Unicode characters, forcing them to adopt the formatting of whatever document you're currently typing in.
That metadata dump saves professionals an unbelievable amount of tedious cleanup. You no longer have to manually highlight the pasted text, unbold it, and switch the font back to Arial size 11.
It's a completely seamless integration of outside information into your workspace.
And that concept of keeping your eyes locked onto the actual content applies to navigating the document too, doesn't it?
It does. Using Control+F to find a word is standard, but the guide emphasizes using Control+G to jump to the next result, and Control-Shift-G for the previous one.
Why is that better than clicking the little arrows in the search box?
It's about cognitive anchoring. If you use your mouse to click the tiny down arrow in the search bar, your eyes have to dart up to the corner of the screen, acquire the target, click, and then scan the massive document area to figure out where the screen just jumped to.
Oh, right. You totally lose your place.
Exactly. But when you use Control+G, your visual focus never leaves the center of the text. Your brain stays anchored to the language and the ideas rather than the mechanics of the interface.
If precision keeps you focused inside a single document, how do we protect that focus when we scale up to macro actions?
Like workspace organization and communication.
Yeah, exactly. Platforms like Slack are essentially the nervous system of modern business, but they are actively designed to interrupt us and pull our attention away.
Communication platforms are the ultimate test of workflow efficiency. They are inherently noisy.
Very noisy. So how do shortcuts help here?
Well, the guide outlines a 3-move flow, specifically for Slack, that allows a professional to engage with communication without getting sucked into the interface.
Okay, what's the first move?
The first move is Control+K. That bypasses the entire sidebar interface and opens a jumper box. You simply type the name of the colleague or channel, and you are teleported there instantly.
Oh, so you bypass the visual trap of seeing like 5 other unread notifications in the sidebar?
Precisely. You stay on mission. The second move is Control+N to instantly snap your cursor into composing a new message.
And the third move?
The third move is crucial for professional communication, using Shift+Enter to create a line break within a message.
The savior of the half-baked thought.
Haha, yes.
Without Shift+Enter, hitting the return key fires off the message immediately. There is nothing worse than accidentally sending an incomplete sentence to the entire executive team.
It completely protects your drafting process. But protecting your focus goes beyond just chat applications. The source material dives deeply into workspace organization, particularly the use of virtual desks.
Oh, right. On a Chromebook, for instance, pressing Shift, Search, and the equal sign generates an entirely new blank desktop environment.
Yes, and you can move between them with Search and the bracket keys.
I understand minimizing windows to clean up a screen, but what is the actual advantage of creating an entirely separate virtual desk?
It really comes down to the cognitive science of spatial memory.
Spatial memory.
Yeah, the human brain maps digital windows, similarly to how it maps physical objects in a room. If you have a spreadsheet, a PDF, your email client, and a chat window all layered on top of each other, your brain is silently expending glucose, keeping track of where everything is spatially located.
Wow, so it creates heavy cognitive load just having them visible.
Exactly. A virtual desk functions like walking into a completely different physical room. You can dedicate one desk entirely to deep focus writing and another desk entirely to communication.
And then just slide between these environments in milliseconds.
Right. You maintain absolute visual compartmentalization.
Wait, that brings up an interesting point from the text that I actually want to push back on.
Okay, what is it?
The guide dedicates a significant section to accessibility shortcuts. Things like using Control, Search, and M to open a screen magnifier, or Search, Control, and H to invert the screen colors into high contrast mode, or even Chromevox spoken feedback with Control, Alt, Z.
Yes, those are standard accessibility tools.
Right, but I have always thought of accessibility tool as medical accommodations for individuals with specific visual or motor impairments. Why is a guide aimed at general business efficiency focusing on screen magnifiers if my vision is 20/20?
This raises an important question about the nature of technology, and it introduces the concept of universal design.
Universal design, what does that mean in this context?
Accessibility tools are fundamentally about altering the operating system's rendering pipeline to overcome environmental friction. Let's look at practical business scenarios.
Okay.
Imagine you are on a video conference, sharing your screen to present a dense financial spreadsheet. The compression of the video stream makes the numbers totally illegible for your audience.
That happens all the time.
Right. So instead of fumbling through the application's view menus to change the zoom percentage, you trigger the OS lever magnifier shortcut, highlight the exact cell, and make your point seamlessly.
Oh, I see. Or like, if I take my laptop outside to work on a patio and the sun creates a massive glare on the monitor, high contrast mode isn't just for visual impairments.
Exactly. It dynamically overrides the color hex codes to make the screen legible in extreme lighting.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Universal design means these tools allow any professional to forcefully adapt their digital environment to their immediate physical reality.
And to do it without breaking their stride.
So, what does this all mean? We have explored Fitts law, DOM caching, clipboard metadata, spatial memory, and universal design.
Got a lot of ground to cover.
It is. If we synthesize all of this, how does memorizing these keystrokes actually translate into a tangible business advantage?
It translates into the compounding interest of time.
The compounding interest of time. Like that.
Yeah, when we talk about bypassing the mouse to use Control, Shift, V, we're talking about saving maybe 3 seconds per action. In isolation, 3 seconds is statistically insignificant.
Right, nobody cares about 3 seconds.
But you have to run the math on the cumulative effect. You switch tabs 100 times a day. You copy and paste 50 times a day. You jump between communication channels 200 times a day.
You are literally saving thousands of seconds.
Exactly. And it isn't just the raw seconds saved on the mechanical action. It is the prevention of cognitive distraction.
That is the core insight, isn't it?
It really is. Research into workplace interruption, like the studies conducted by Gloria Mark at UC Irvine, shows that it can take over 20 minutes to fully regain a state of deep focus after a disruption.
20 minutes, that's huge.
Right. When you use a mouse, every physical reach, every misclick, every visual hunt for a tiny icon is a micro-disruption. By keeping your hands anchored to the keyboard, you are severely reducing the opportunity for your flow state to fracture.
You are spending your brain power on solving complex problems, not on operating the machine.
Precisely. And, operating the machine effectively also means securing it rapidly. The article points out that on a Chromebook, simply pressing the search key and the letter L instantly locks the device.
Oh, that's crucial. If you are working on confidential data in an open office and need to step away, you don't have time to navigate a start menu. Immediate physical control equals security.
Exactly.
But I'll be honest, transitioning to this level of control feels a bit daunting. If you're listening and you want to implement this tomorrow, how do you avoid getting overwhelmed by the sheer volume of shortcuts?
That's a very real concern. But the source material provides a highly practical framework for building this habit.
What's the strategy?
The most critical advice is, do not attempt to memorize the entire list at once. You must treat this like a chef organizing their mise en place.
Setting up their station.
Right. A chef arranges their cutting board, their knives, and their ingredients in precise, repeatable locations so their hands know exactly where to reach without their eyes having to look. You build that muscle memory incrementally.
So pick a specific category to master first.
Yes. The guide suggests grouping similar actions, like pick just 3 to memorize this week. Maybe dedicate this entire week solely to mastering the browser.
Just make a conscious commitment that you will not use your mouse to open, close, or switch tabs for 5 days.
Exactly. Map the physical movements of those specific keys into your basal ganglia. Once that becomes involuntary, move on to text selection. It is a slow, deliberate practice that results in exponential speed.
It's the classic military adage. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Build the structural foundation first, and the speed will emerge on its own as the friction disappears.
That's spot on. And I'd like to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over as you return to your workspace.
Let's hear it.
We know from neurological studies that the physical movements of our hands are deeply intertwined with how our brains process language and spatial reasoning.
Okay.
If you eliminate the erratic, sweeping, unpredictable motions of constantly reaching for a mouse and instead build a steady, rhythmic tactile connection directly with the keys, how much faster and how much clearer could your mind work if your hands never had to leave the home row?
Wow. That is an incredibly powerful concept to consider, that we can literally shape the clarity of our thoughts by refining the physical movements of our hands.
Thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast for this deep dive.
It was a great discussion.
We really hope this conversation helps you look at your keyboard and your daily workflow through a completely new lens. If you want to reclaim hours of your week and get the absolute most out of your digital tools, make sure to subscribe to the podcast.
Highly recommend it. And definitely go read the full, comprehensive article by Felix Römer. It is packed with even more insights on habit building and advanced system controls, and we've put the link right there in the show notes for you. Until next time, keep your hands on the keys and protect your momentum.